What's going on YouTube? It's RonnyPugs and I'm back again with another TierMarker video for you guys. It has been a while since I made a video. I think it's been about a month, which is my longest stretch of not making a video, but it's mainly because I haven't really felt like making one lately. I've been super busy with life outside of YouTube, and there hasn't really been much to talk about in regards to Spider-Man. But for today, I'm coming back, and in this video I wanted to make it a bit of a long one. We are going to be ranking every Spider-Man film, including the Sony spin-offs. And also something that you guys might know, if you do follow me on Twitter, I got a pug recently, so my name makes a lot more sense again. And she's a bit of a nut right now. She's going crazy right now. She's about 14 weeks old. I'm basically just letting herself tire herself out because she's been running around the house all day. So she's playing with her toys right now. So if you do hear any background noise in regards to her, I do apologize. This is a live recording. But just like my ranking of the movie suits, we will be going in order from when these films are released. This is my personal preference to which Spider-Man films I think are the best. I have hinted towards this in the past before, but I've never shared my official rankings. But I do think at the point we're at right now, this is a good time to start these rankings, considering that Tom Holland just finished his trilogy. Although the next films we do have in the slate are Across the Spider-Verse and Madam Web, which I'm actually kind of excited for Madam Web. So regardless, with all that, let's get into this TierMarker ranking of every Spider-Man film, including the Sony spin-offs. Starting these rankings off, we have my first exposure to the character of Spider-Man, and I'm going to make this one an easy one for these two right here. These are automatic S tier. I flip-flop back and forth between which ones I like more, or which one I like more. Personally, I'd say the better story is Spider-Man 2, but the more fun film is Spider-Man 1. I love both of these films equally. I don't think I would change anything between the two. I will have to say though, if I had to pick one, it would be Spider-Man 2, mainly because I can relate to it a lot more now that I'm older, although I do think Spider-Man 1 is the more fun film, but it does seem a bit more dated compared to Spider-Man 2. Next, we have the final Raimi film in the Raimi trilogy, Spider-Man 3. For this, I don't think Spider-Man 3 is a bad film. I do think it's disappointing compared to Spider-Man 1 and 2. Obviously, it doesn't live up to those two. I think I'm going to have to put it in a C, though, mainly because there is a lot that I would change about it, and that is a video for another time. Mainly because Venom really isn't in the film, except for like the last, 15 minutes. I think they could have did a lot more with the black suit and the Harry Osborn storyline when he becomes the Green Goblin. And I also think that Sandman was a bit useless in the film, and not useless in the sense that I don't like him as a villain. I think the film could have stood on its own with Harry Osborn and Venom being the two villains. And I also think that retconning Sandman to be Uncle Ben's killer kind of just makes the universe a bit smaller, because you're telling me that Uncle Ben's killer in this world where, as far as we know, only Tobey Maguire and whoever else, only Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker, and whichever villains before them had superpowers, you're telling me that Uncle Ben's killer happens to be one of those very few individuals that also has superpowers. It's not perfect. I think a lot more needs to be done with it, but it's an okay film. It's not bad. I enjoy watching it. And although it does have its flaws, I do think it's an interesting end to the Raimi trilogy, as it wraps up some of the stories pretty well. Next, we have The Amazing Reboot Man. So, a bit confusing on where I would put this one, but given my future rankings on this list, I'm going to put this one in B. I think it's a solid take on a new interpretation of the character. Again, they wanted to be a bit different from what the Raimi films did, so this film is a bit darker. When it comes to Spider-Man, I think I relate to Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker the most. When this film first came out, there was so much hype for the untold story. I don't think it's bad. I think it's a good reboot for what it was. I wish they would have kept the tone later for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. But my biggest complaint with this film has to be the fact that Peter creates an entire suit just to hunt down Uncle Ben's killer. It doesn't click with him that he could be doing this for the greater good once his dinner with Captain Stacy. And at that point, he hasn't even fought the lizard. He's just been tracking down the person that looks like his uncle's killer. Overall, it's a solid reboot. And again, I wish they would have kept the tone for The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which, speaking of which, if I put Spider-Man 3 in average, which is C, I'm going to have to put TASM 2 in D. Now, I do have newfound appreciation for this film prior to watching No Way Home, since I did the whole marathon for it. I really did miss Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I'm not one of those people who was like, wow, this is a great Spider-Man after No Way Home came out. It does have its flaws. Like I said, I would have kept the tone. Again, I would have kept the tone from the first film. This one doesn't feel like it's set in the same universe, kind of. And a lot of this I don't really like. Personally, to continue the untold story, I would have just done Harry Osborn as the villain. Electro was kind of useless again. just like Sandman in Spider-Man 3, I kind of felt like he was useless. The Rhino is a complete goofball in the film, and what this film failed to do, it didn't keep its own story, basically. It was trying to set up future films, which never even came to the light. And to this day, Sony is still trying to set up the Sinister Six. I do think the thing where Peter was basically destined to be Spider-Man because of the blood was a bad idea. I wish this film would have stayed more grounded instead of trying to set up the sequels. But I will say, given the remaining films on this list, if those are to be in the D category, then TASM 2 is my favorite of those. Of the bad films, I should say. Next, we have a film that I said was the greatest Spider-Man film at the time, which is a common reoccurrence once I see the new one because I just like it because it's new. Spider-Man Homecoming. You know what? I'm going to put this one in B. I'm going to bump TASM 1 up to A, mainly because I do like TASM 1 more than Homecoming. I do think Homecoming is a solid film. I really enjoyed the hype to it because I was so excited that Spider-Man was finally going to be in the MCU. I think Vulture is one of the best Spider-Man villains. As much as people don't like the tech aspect of MCU Spider-Man, this film does basically bring him back down to the ground towards the end of it because he fights the Vulture with his own suit, and he also denies the Iron Spider at the end of the film. This is the first film on this list that had multiple villains, and they handled them all extremely well. I think there was 4 in this film, and they handled them all extremely well. I do really enjoy Homecoming. I can't say much for the sequel. We'll get into that, though. But it is a solid take, once again, on a new interpretation of the character. They had to be different from the Raimi trilogy and TASM. And overall, it's a good film. Next, we have the first of the Sony spin-offs. We have Venom. Venom, easily, I have to put this one at C. I'm not too sure if I like Venom 2 more than this one. We'll get into that later. I think they did an okay job for what they had to work with. I don't think this is a film that needed to be made, but they had to change the origin because there was no Spider-Man in this universe, and they did an alright job with it. The villain, I think his name is Riot, right? He is completely forgettable. I've never heard of him prior to this film. I do think it's an alright film for what it is, though. I have nothing else to say about it other than, like, it's kind of goofy, and it didn't really need to be made, but it's not terrible. When this first came out, I think it had a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. This film doesn't feel like a 30%. It's an okay film, in my opinion. Like, it's a fun watch, and overall, I'm alright with it. And next, we have the film that blew everybody's expectations out of the water. We have Into the Spider-Verse. This one, easily, I have to put in as an A. I don't think anything else is going to top Spider-Man 1 or 2 for me, but this is a great film. This blew everybody's expectations out of the water. We were going into it never having an animated Spider-Man film before and never having a Spider-Man film that was centered around another Spider-Man besides Peter Parker. They did a great job with this. This is a really fun watch. It's something new, and I cannot wait for Across the Spider-Verse because there's supposed to be a lot more different Spider-Man in there. I keep seeing these toy leaks like every day of just different Spider-Man. Like the one I saw the other day was like Cyborg Spider-Woman, and that looks completely crazy. And I believe they're going to be having some of the other female Spider-Man characters in there as well, such as Spider-Woman and I think Mayday Parker. And also the Spot is going to be the villain, which is like the perfect multiverse villain for them to do. I'm very excited for the sequel. At the time, this was Sony's best Spider-Man film that they put out, aside from TASM 1. And I don't have much to say about it other than it's great. Next, we have, in regards to my least favorite Spider-Man film on this list, that's just the Spider-Man film and not the spin-offs, we have Far From Home. I'm going to get killed for this because I think during my my Far From Home review stream, I said it was better than Homecoming. Yeah, a lot has changed within that time. I don't like this film at all. It doesn't feel like a Spider-Man film to me. I do like Mysterio in it, and there are certain parts of it that I do like, such as the final battle where Peter has to completely create the suit, and this also laid the ground for No Way Home. But there's just a lot that I don't like about it. I wish the film would have been set in New York. I know they wanted to do something different, but it doesn't really make it feel like a Spider-Man film at that point. I think the supporting cast in this film is kind of lackluster compared to No Way Home and as well as Homecoming. And especially that one guy, I think his name in the film was Brad. They don't even bring him back for No Way Home. So it's like, I think they kind of figured out that people don't really like this character, which might be the point of it, but it's like, Make Flash Thompson that person that Peter doesn't really like. And of course, the scene on the bus where he calls the drone strike in on his classmates, I think that is the worst scene of any of the main Spider-Man films. I don't like this film at all. I think out of all the Spider-Man films that we've gone through so far, aside from the spin-offs, this is the one that I've rewatched the least. I'll watch it if it's on, but it's not going to be my first choice when it comes to Spider-Man films. Next, we have Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I was extremely hyped for this because we finally got to see Carnage on screen, and I thought Woody Harrelson was going to do a great job as Cletus Cassidy, which I still think he did. But I'm going to put both of the Venom films in C. I mean, they're not bad. They're not great either. They're just there. I do like this one more than Venom, the first Venom film, though. And at the time, I was extremely excited for the sequel for Venom 3 or even No Way Home because of the post-credit scene. I do wish they did not kill off Carnage because I was thinking that they could do sort of like a Maximum Carnage storyline, but it looks like in the sequel we'll be getting Toxin, which could be interesting. But with the direction the Venom films are headed, I really have no idea. But both of them, in my opinion, they're just okay. They're not great. They're not bad either. They're just there. Next, we have a film where I was extremely hyped. I think everybody was extremely hyped for this, especially with the rumors. Nobody believed them at first. This is the greatest film I shouldn't say greatest film because there's other films outside of like Marvel and stuff. But this is the most hyped I've ever been for a film in a while. After this film came out, I probably had the entire second half of the film quoted by, let's say, maybe a week after the film. I saw this 3 times in 3 nights when it came out. No Way Home. It's not an S tier for me, but it is an A tier. It was so amazing seeing the return of all the past characters, the villains, Spider-Man, and the thing that this film really did was it made me excited for MCU Spider-Man, kind of like how they kind of did a soft reboot with the character, and the rumors for Spider-Man 4 in the MCU are that it's supposed to be a bit more grounded and that Daredevil Born Again is going to lead in the Spider-Man 4, which if that's the case, I'm extremely excited, and we're also probably going to be getting the symbiote line for the sequel. I think if this film didn't have the multiverse aspect of it, I wouldn't be as excited for it as if it was just a regular MCU Spider-Man 3. But I will say I do have some issues with the film. Like, for one, I would have included the Tobey and Goblin fight. Like, it's a crime that the two don't interact with each other at all in the film, even in the extended cut. I would have also given like a clear explanation to what happens to the villains after they return home, because if they all return home just cured, it kind of defeats everything that happened within the Raimi trilogy, or even the TASM duology. Personally, I think curing all of them brought them back to a new timeline where their life is great. Well, I shouldn't say great because we don't know what happens to them after this, but their accident doesn't happen, let's say that. So I do think the ending creates different timelines, and there's also a bit of continuity error when it comes to the Raimi trilogy, because Sandman says that Green Goblin died and it was all over the news that he was Norman Osborn. Well, it's not public knowledge that he is Norman Osborn, or he was the Green Goblin, because if he was, Oscorp probably would have all went under, Harry would have had a lot of questioning, and he's in denial the whole trilogy that, you know, my dad wasn't the Green Goblin. So we never hear about it while we're watching the Raimi trilogy films. Personally, I think Sandman said that because he's pulled from present day, and that it may have been all over the news once they had to clear out the Osborn estate after Harry's death in Spider-Man 3. Overall, I really love this film. I do got some minor issues with it. It's not perfect, but I mean, it's a multiverse film. You got to do what you got to do. I really hope we can see the return of Tobey and Andrew in the future. And overall, this is just a great film. I'm so excited for MCU Spider-Man 4 after this film. And finally, it's Morbin time. No question about this. D category. I really do not care about this film at all. I did see it opening night before all the memes. This is one of those films that are just there. I don't think Morbius is going to end up getting a sequel unless they do it for the memes. But I will say my biggest issue with the film is that it kind of just ends like... It kind of ends and you don't realize it just ended. Like, they don't do like any like recap of everything or an epilogue or anything like that. No, it's just, I think Morbius just like flies into the camera and that's it. Like right after the final battle. So yeah, that's it. Morbius is one of those films that didn't need to be made. They cut out all of the Spider-Man stuff. Overall, I don't care for it. But if I had to pick one film that is the worst from this bunch, it's obviously Morbius. I'd say the worst Spider-Man film on this list, though, is Far From Home, in my opinion. So there you guys have it, my entire rankings of the Spider-Man films. Let me know what you all think, and I will be linking this down below so you guys can share your own rankings with me, or even if you want to just type them out in the comments. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, follow my social medias, hit that like button, and I will see you guys again in my next video.